It's a pleasure to rise and to address this important matter for Canadians following the report by Canada's Auditor General. Now, before I get into the substantive portion of my remarks and the case for the imperative of getting Canadians their money back, but also to have a lifetime ban for the contractors involved in the principles of the contracting firm in question, I want to inform the chair that I'll be splitting my time with the honourable member for Edmonton West. And it's actually a privilege to split my time with this member. We often talk about His Majesty's loyal opposition being a government in waiting. And it's interesting because there was an exchange recently between the Right Honourable Prime Minister, who is new to this place, and the member for Edmonton West, who's an experienced parliamentarian. And the Prime Minister, in a moment, perhaps in jest, but certainly exposing his lack of familiarity with members of the official opposition, he said that the member for Edmonton West didn't understand how things worked in this place, didn't know the difference between a budget and estimates. And I want to offer a bit of history to the Prime Minister because it's really important. It's important that the Prime Minister understand who is holding him to account. Now, the member for Edmonton West has an office complement that is the same size as all members in this House. Now, ministers, of course, get much larger offices. They get political exempt staff, and then they get access to full departments. The member for Edmonton West, has a couple people that work in his office, just like the rest of us do. But in 2018, when the government tabled the budget, now, I don't know how many people work at the Department of Finance. There's a lot. There are thousands of them. And this budget gets tabled in the House, and the member for Edmonton West, on his own, in doing his due diligence, reviewing the budget, finds that the Minister of Finance and the ministry made an error of about $150 million. Now, the honourable member, he was able to correct the homework of the government, of the minister, of their staff, and the entire ministry when they laid that budget on the table here. So when we bring things before this House, it's because we've done our due diligence, and it's because we're going to do what we've always done, and that's punch above our weight. So while they have the weight of the entire public service, they have all of the extra resources that come with serving in government, there's also incredible responsibilities to get it right and to make sure that they get value for taxpayers, to make sure that when mistakes are made, that they're corrected, and when value isn't received, that it's corrected. So what we saw in the Auditor General's reports this week confirms what Canada's Conservatives had raised the alarm bell about in the previous Parliament. And on a range of issues that the Auditor General looked at, she found that there were massive cost overruns and in fact, negligence by the Liberal government. Specifically, in the use of the contractor GC Strategies, who was the preferred contractor in what's now known as the ArriveCAN scandal. This was the app that the government originally pegged at costing $80,000. It ultimately cost many orders of magnitude more than that, in excess of $64 million. And on value for money, it just wasn't there. For context, and for new members to this place, it's important to note that when the official opposition initially raised concerns about the ArriveCAN app, the government said that the app worked great, it worked as intended, they got value for money, and they had no regrets. They paraded people through committee over and over again with that refrain. But it turns out that that just simply wasn't the case. Now, when the leader of the opposition, Mr. Poilievre, he called for an Auditor General investigation, and there was a vote in the House. The Liberals, the cabinet that's responsible, the executive that's responsible for this project, this massive boondoggle, voted against having the Auditor General take a look at it. Now, why would they not want the investigation if they were so proud of it and if it had worked as intended? Of course, they knew that it was a corrupt process and they didn't want it to come to light. But we did our work, holding the government to account, checking their homework, and we found the errors. We found the grift that had occurred. And it's not just about the nearly $100 million in contracts that GC Strategies was awarded, a company owned by Mr. Kristian, Firth, and Darren Anthony. It's about the procurement processes that were not followed. Let's take, for example, the imperative of security clearances. So this company, and I use that term loosely, these were a couple of guys working in their basement getting multi-million-dollar IT contracts from the government of Canada, working in their basement, but they weren't IT experts. And the contracts that they were awarded required security clearances. Some of the departments that they worked for included public safety, they were working for a CBSA, they were working for national defense. And what did the Auditor General find? Found that 50% of contracts requiring security clearances, departments can't prove that these workers, subcontractors for GC Strategies, had the security clearance. And in over 20%, workers were actively on the job without a valid security clearance. This isn't a government that takes, this Liberal government isn't one that takes security seriously if this is what they deem an acceptable procurement practice. Now, what's going to be shocking for Canadians is anyone who's ever had a project done at home. You know, if you get a deck built at your house and you put a deposit down and the work is complete and it's satisfactory, you pay the contractor and you thank them for their hard work. But what we saw here was in 46% of the contracts, there was no proof of work delivered, but they paid them in 100% of the cases. It's unacceptable, and we know that because no household would do it, no small business would do it, and certainly the Government of Canada shouldn't have done it. So what we're asking for is reasonable, but it's also the minimum expectation that Canadians have of us as Parliament. And that's that within 100 days of the passage of this motion, that the government get Canadians their money back and not simply let it stand that the name of the company who was involved in this fraud not be allowed to bid on government contracts for 7 years, that them, their principals, their subsidiaries have a lifetime ban on doing work for the Government of Canada on behalf of Canadians. This is what they expect of us. Now, we'll hear the rise of all kinds of partisan hackles over the course of today, but I think that this is a great opportunity. We're going to hear that this is a new Liberal government. And if it is, it's time for them to show that, let us smell that new car smell, that new government smell, rise above the partisanship, the instinct to oppose this for the sake of opposing it, vote with this common sense motion, get Canadians their money back, get accountability by banning these contractors, and let's show Canadians that when we tax $1 for them, that it's going to go as far as it can, and if someone takes advantage of the government of Canada, takes advantage of Canadians, we won't let it stand. Thank you very much.